Hello everybody and welcome back to the channel and welcome to part 2 of our Virpil installation configuration, customization, and review. Today we'll be focusing primarily on the T-50 CM3 throttle and the desk mount for it. I hope you guys enjoy. If you are interested in acquiring any of my Overkills tutorial guides for Microsoft Flight Simulator, please consider joining me on Patreon. Patreon subscribers level tier 2 and above have access to all of my guides, as well as any future updates and future guides that will be coming down the road. Link to Patreon can be found in the description below. Okay guys, so like I said, this is part 2 where we are going to repeat the same steps we did in part 1, doing the unboxing, configuration, customization, setup options for the T-50 CM3 throttle and the version 4 base or desk mount for it. This is an absolutely amazing product, guys. Make sure to check out video 1 so you can see all the detailed information for the base and the grip. It has been an absolute amazing experience. Make sure you guys watch this and enjoy the ride. All right, guys, so now it is time to unbox the throttle. This thing is incredible. And again, on par with Virpil and their packaging, everything was very, very well secured here. The box is very tight. That's a big deal to me, having the box be tight like that, because it means everything was taken down and packed. You have our cable to connect it, and we're going to talk about a caveat with that later on. Once again, the QR code that can be easily scanned, it's upside down, but to get you to the documentation for the assembly and configuration. Here is the bag of all the different detents that you can set inside of the throttle, which will be adjusting those as well. It comes with a 8 and a 10 millimeter wrench or spanner. Let's get some of the packaging out of the way. And now it's time for the grand reveal. This thing is heavy. It has got some weight to it. I was very impressed with that. There it is, all done. Okay, let's go ahead and keep going. So now I get to fight through the bag again. This time I had a little bit more success, but still the bag almost won there for a second. Everything was taped and wrapped very, very well. And again, guys, I'm not usually one to big in doing unboxes, but when you're talking about product of the cost of these and the quality of these, it is very, very nice to see, which is why I kept it all in the video. So there you go. Now you've seen it all done. And let's go ahead and just pull it out of the bag. I had to have a little bit of fun with this stuff, guys. So I like I said, voiceovers in general make it weird for me, so I had to make it even weirder for you guys. So if I can create a couple moments of awkwardness, that would work out well. All right, so there it is. Look how gorgeous this thing looks. Now I will tell you, here is my first complaint. My first and only complaint that I was able to come up with of these is the little red switches. They do look very, very plastic, a little bit on the cheaper side is how it looks, but that is the only thing I can come up with on this, so don't hang on that. All of the buttons and switches and axis on this thing, holy mercy. This thing can be configured however you want, guys. It is great for any simulation. They thought of all of it with this thing. There was a ton of effort and serious time taken. The finger lifts are so cool. They work so nicely and they're so comfortable to reach, and you can even adjust the finger lift position. You guys can see those screws on those are actually adjustment screws. You can lift the finger lifts up and down to adjust for your finger. And again, these are the switches that I wasn't crazy about the feeling of the switch themselves, but the actuation of the switches was fine. It felt very solid, very sturdy. I still like playing with them. I found myself on a call today and playing with them, so obviously they're great if I can continue to play with them. You have 6 buttons. You have 2 rotaries. Now, those 2 rotaries are also push buttons as well, which I forgot to demonstrate here. And you have 5 different programming modes. That rotary allows you to set all of the buttons up to program in one. Then you switch the mode, and they can all do something completely different. 5 different settings that you can program. The throttle separation is very, very nice. The actuation of it works really, really well. You can see the build on this, guys. Everything, the way it's all mounted, it just screams quality. You have an axis there on the side. You have another one on the opposite side above what was the mic switch on the Thrustmaster. That I have already messed around with a little bit to give you guys a little sneak peek on the for the elevation for the radar in DCS World. It works great. You have an axis there. You have a hat. Two hats there up front. You have the mouse up on the index finger. I mean, I'd like to say that I named all these buttons, guys, but I haven't even programmed half of them yet. There's just so much. I think the most frustrating part of the throttle here is just deciding where you want everything. You have so much option. You have so many customization options and configuration options to really bind things to a comfortable spot that it's almost overwhelming. And that is a wonderful thing. That is not a negative. That is great. But it's just like one of those, like, do I want this here? Do I really want that here? The second I pulled this thing out and started playing with it as I'm doing this recording, that's exactly what was going through my head. So the next thing we're going to do is we're going to talk about how to address the tension on the throttles, which requires a bit of work, but I love the idea behind it. I actually prefer this over a tension wheel. So you have to turn it over on its side, and we need to get the 3 screws, or actually 6 screws, off the bottom plate, just on the edges. Don't touch anything in those 4 middle ones. Those are used for mounting to the desk mount, which we'll show later on. But so we're going to take the 2.5 Allen wrench, and again, all the necessary tools come with the packaging. You can see the Allen wrench over there on the left that comes with it. I just prefer to use my own here. Again, I went out and bought these specifically for this process, so I'm really glad I did. It made it a lot easier. So we're going to get all 6 of these screws out, and then we're going to remove the bottom plate. Okay, so getting that last screw out. Real simple process, and everything fits so nicely that it just sort of pops off, but it doesn't feel like it's like going to fall on you or anything. It's got good weight to it, but nothing too crazy. Again, really impressed with the overall construction of all this. There's my nasty mug. And now to adjust the tension screws, you guys, there's an adjustment nut, if you will, on each of the throttles. So there's one for the right one. And then there underneath the bottom there, let me get that under the camera. There we go, is the other one. And you're just going to take a 10 millimeter wrench. So for all my mechanic guys out there, hey, it's not a socket, but they did give us a 10 millimeter spanner. So hey, they're thinking about us, right? So again, you have an 8 on one side, a 10 on the other. Now you do want to make sure that you're holding the respective throttle up on top as you adjust the nut, but simply turn it until the tension is where you'd like it. And you can turn it all the way down to where it doesn't move at all. So keep that in mind. Again, you have to hold the throttle, tighten it to the desired position, match the other side. Again, quick glimpse of my nasty head. And bring that in, and we're good to go. And they feel fantastic. These were actually a little stiff for me. I think I actually remembered I went in and adjusted it or pulled it back a little bit here. So there's a lot of adjustment because I like a very firm throttle. So the fact that I had to loosen them back up a little bit should tell you guys how tight you can really make them. And the fact that you can adjust them independently makes it very, very nice as well. I think that's actually a big trigger for me as far as, ooh, shiny moment. I was really super stoked by that because the 2 combined at a very tight setting was almost too much, as you guys saw, which is why I went back and pulled it back a little bit. Where like the Thrustmaster Warthog, it's a single tension wheel for both axes. And the fact that we can do that independently now is a really great plus on the TM50 CM3 or the TCM350. Gosh, one of these days I'm going to get it right. And again, one last quick adjustment again. Made the right side a little too tight. And I wanted to bring the other one a little bit further back. And then once you're happy with your configuration, then it's simply a matter of putting the bottom plate back on it. So I was pretty happy with what I had here. So now, again, turned it back on its side. Now, to get the screws back on easily, I recommend doing sort of a cross pattern, however you want to do it, center, corner, but just sort of do opposing sides. And that way you don't have to hold the bottom plate up quite as long. Now, because there was a little bit of play, I had to sort of find the screw that was working, but that was because it was sitting on its side. So I don't think that has anything to do with poor manufacturing or anything like that. I mean, like I said, once I lined the screw hole up, it went just fine. It just took me a second. And once I set it upside down like this, it was much easier to find one that locked into place there. But again, that was just me. Again, being very gentle with it. I'm not putting any pressure. Just my big frying pan fingers just struggled a little bit fighting with the little screws. But again, I would not call this a design flaw at all. There we go. Got one. He can be taught. And again, once I got one in, they all sort of just fell into place from there. Get the first couple in. And from there on out, it was easy peasy getting the last four in place. I will say too, the way that these are designed, they were almost fun to work on. They really were. It gave you a really different sense from any other flight controls that I have worked on before. Most of the stuff that I deal with is all plastic, and they're all things that are sort of basic configuration options, but nothing that requires any real maintenance or mechanical processing. And so the fact that these have that made it kind of fun. It really did. Okay, so now we're going to talk about the detents. Now, the first thing that you need to understand is you need a 2.5 Allen wrench to adjust or remove the detents. Now, the detents actually have an adjustment channel in them, so it's not just a matter of one and done. You can choose the detent style that you want, and then you can actually adjust it forward and aft depending on where you want that detent to actually take place, and gives you a bit more fine tuning. Now, I am not going to go over what each detent is. The documentation from Virpil does a very, very wonderful job doing that. What I really want to focus on is the fact that you can actually interchange the detents as well. So you can pull maybe a forward one from one package and an aft one from another package. And we'll talk about some of that later. Now, what we are going to be changing these out to is what they call the classic detent. Basically, what I want is I want a finger lift for the afterburners, and I want a finger lift for the cutoff. As I fly primarily DCS World with this type of throttle, I want to be able to have both of those. And so the aerobatic detents are in by default. There's the wrench that comes with the kit. It's already in that bag. We're going to be taking, again, those ones out and putting them in their own bag. And then I'm going to grab the classic detents to put in. And again, what I'm looking for is forward. I want to have to use the finger lifts in order to go into afterburner if I want to go past mill power. And then again, the same thing, I want cutoff where I can pull the throttles to full aft and it'll actually shut the engines down by cutting off the fuel flow. So I like that classic detent style, and these are so freaking nice, you guys. Oh my gosh, I cannot stress enough how much fun it is playing with these detents and the finger lifts. I have sat here while doing this recording. I have probably done it 219 times while sitting here talking to you guys since the start of this video, going in and out of the cutoff position on mine. I'm literally sitting right here right now. I've got my fingers on the finger lifts playing. They are so cool. The actuation feels so nice. But anyway, the biggest thing that I really enjoyed about the detents is the customization options, the fact that you can interchange them. So you can, like I said, you can pull one set from one or the aft set from another. You have almost like an Airbus style as well, where it's got just push through. Not everything requires the finger lift position. Some are push through. They all have these identifiers. The detent with that solid line and then the arrow goes in the back. And you can see here, this one just has an arrow on it that tells you it goes up front. So they also tell you, hey, this goes in the back of the throttle, this goes in the front of the throttle. Makes it very easy to determine that. But you can sort of tell by the shape as well once you figure out how the finger lifts work. Now, like I said, they also do have quite a few different push-through options. And for those of you who don't understand the difference, Finger lift, I have to use those finger lifts that I was talking about earlier to lift up over the detent, where a push through is a notch that you can feel, but all you have to do is give the throttle a little more oomph and you'll push through the detent or roll over it. And that's what I really like about the way that these detents are set, is the finger lifts. If you guys see back there, right where my finger is right now, those are rollers that will actually roll through the push through settings. So it makes it very, very nice. They really thought of everything while doing this. Now, in order to line the detents up, I did have to manipulate the throttles a little bit just to get that screw hole, but I think that was just a preference for me to make it easier for me. You guys will find your own ways, I'm sure, to do this. This part for, again, the big frying pan hands was a little difficult for me, but again, I don't consider that a design flaw. I have big hands, so it was kind of a pain in the butt holding the screw in place. But again, being very, very gentle, waiting for those threads to catch on their own. And then you saw right there, the entire element sort of dropped down. That was the screw dropping down into its receiving channel. And once we did that, bing, bada, boom, we were ready to go. So a very, very simple process, very, very easy to customize. I really like the ability to adjust them forward and aft about a half an inch as well. The fact that you're not just bound to one specific location on these is really advantageous, especially when you're configuring things like the afterburner detents on different aircraft. It's really nice to be able to have that full throttle motion up until your mill point, and then being able to feel the rest of that channel and adjust it accordingly, rather than just being limited to the axis configuration on your particular simulator. And again, when I say the afterburners, I'm referencing DCS World. That is where this throttle for me is going to shine. But I can also tell you right now that I know some people who play Star Citizen that would love this because of all the configuration options. But Star Citizen, hopefully in the future, we may have a different review for you guys. By the way, I'm getting into it, so we'll see what happens. You guys might see Star Citizen coming to the channel here pretty soon. So I'm trying to learn it. There's a lot. That's a busy one. But the process of changing out the detents, again, time consuming in the aspect that you want to take the time to figure out what's best for you. What are you going to like the most? I highly recommend with all of this stuff, guys, take your time to find what you want. So there's mill power, lift up and over. And that's the lift gates that I was talking about. And then you pull it back, it just drops right into place. Can't go forward, come back and you lift up. And I'm going to go into the cutoff position. I want just that little last eighth inch to be my cutoff position. So it's really slick, really, really well done. And so finally, here she is in all of her glory once again. An absolutely beautiful, beautiful product. Everything actuates very, very nicely, has a very firm feel to it. I love all of the customization options and the different configuration options. I'm sitting here racking my brain. This is only day 2 at the time of this voiceover that I'm doing, and I just can't think enough of all the different things that I'm going to be doing with this particular throttle and all the different ways that I can set it up. Again, my only gripe that I have are those 4 red switches. I just feel like they sort of take away from the rest of the product. I think they should do something different, like maybe just standard toggle switches. I just think it would make them look quite a bit better if they were to go with like some silver switches with maybe a safety hat on them or something like that. But that's minor. That's the biggest complaint I can come up with so far, you guys. This thing is phenomenal. Just phenomenal. All right, so now we're going to take a look at the throttle desk mount. And I told you guys I wasn't going to leave anything out, but to save time on this video, I figured you guys have already seen all these steps before, so I would take some of it out. If you need to see the installation and configuration of these desk mounts from start to finish, please go back to the base desk mount in the previous chapter. Okay, we just went over that. It's literally just a few minutes before this. So be sure to check the description. Again, that's going to be the T50 CM3 Base Desk Mount. We'll have the full installation from start to finish. Just like with the base desk mount, I did need to change out the screw head. You guys can see how the desk mount here does mount. We're actually going to take that center plate out for my particular configuration because I like the throttle way up high based on where my chair is. I'm 6'1", so it's just more comfortable for me to have that kind of stuff at almost arm length. So again, I had to swap out the screw. I had to remove the spacer, which we're doing here. Very easy process. Again, if you need to see the whole thing from start to finish, just check out the previous segment where we did the build for the CM3 base. But same principle, pull the screw out, release the washer, find the particular screw head that you want or the screw size that you want, and adjust as such. Here, I'm putting the screw back in, putting the foot back on, and getting it set up for the desk. Remember, I do recommend when you go to measure it against your desk or table, wherever you want to mount it, have it fully extended first, and then sort of eyeball where you need it to be before you lock it down. And then just adjust by a couple threads. Now here's where this is going to start to get different for us. We need the number 5 Allen wrench, and I'm going to pull that center plate out because that's right about where I want my desk mount to be. So again, take the 8 centimeter, or gosh, I can't talk now, 8 millimeter wrench, and we're going to pull that bottom or that center bracket out, or mounting plate. I don't need it for my configuration, and that's right about where I want the desk mount to go. Okay, so now we're getting that final bolt out, and that center plate come out, and we'll start using those same screws. We're going to install the throttle plate. So again, just setting that aside. And just like with the base mount, the mounting bracket itself goes inside the desk mount. So if you have to sort of squeeze it in there, do what you need to do. It's very awkward holding that, trying to keep it in the camera's field of view. And then just like you did before, I do recommend the same thing that I told you guys before. Sort of just put the screws in the holes, set the desk mount on your desk, mount it to it, and then to adjust the mounting arm for the throttle, just sort of set the screws in it until you find the distance that you want. Lock the nuts down once you do, and then we'll put the throttle on our mount. All right, so here you can see that I've got the throttle mount into the position that I wanted. It took a bit of testing, bring it up and down, and then I would lightly set the throttle on top of it, still keeping the weight in my hand, but getting the position that I wanted it to. Now, to actually set the throttle up to it, I do recommend once you have it all screwed in there, mount it to your desk, then set the throttle on top. But obviously, I had to do this at the table to show you guys. So the first thing that you want to do is take your number 4 Allen wrench, and we're just going to remove the feet on each side of the throttle just by removing those 2 screws that are holding it in on each side. They come out very, very quickly. There isn't much to them. Now you can either put them back in their mounting holes or put them in a bag somewhere, keep them safe. It's up to you. I just elected to put them into a bag. And again, just rinse and repeat on the other side. And I did want to comment that I actually thought it was very nice that the feet are removed, because really the only reason that the feet need to be removed was for aesthetics. And that's a big one. Like, you don't see companies take that into consideration very often. It's more functionality than aesthetics, but in this particular situation, they're like, well, if they have it mounted, they're probably going to not want the feet on them. And they're absolutely right. It makes it look significantly better on the mount without the feet being attached to the throttle. So I was very happy about that. Now here's things were a little tricky for me, but again, it was just because I had to show this on camera. If you guys are doing this at home, I recommend having the desk mount already attached to the desk, and then you're going to use these 4 holes that we discussed very earlier on when we first unveiled the throttle, and then we're going to use the 4 larger screws that are included with the desk mount. And this was a little hard to show, so bear with me, but you guys can see with the channels where all 4 of those holes line up, just like that. And then again, you have the ability to slide the throttle backwards and forward based on your preference. So this part was a little weird to try to show here, It took some finagling trying to figure out how to get it balanced just right where I could hold it and put the screws in, but you guys will get the idea. Again, recommend having the desk mount attached to your table when you guys do this at home. Don't try to do this like I did. I didn't like having to hold the throttle like this. I was worried about it slipping out of my hand and banging against one of those side buttons. Just don't take the risk. As long as you have the desk mount set up right and it's nice and tight on your desk, you should have no problem just getting up underneath it and setting it directly on the mount, which I'm sure is by design. These mounts, one thing I do like is how large the feet are. They hold onto your tabletop or desk very, very nice. And the fact that it's got that plate that goes up against the edge of your desk there up in front of the red lever, again, is even nicer because it keeps them from oscillating. It's a really, really good setup. But even this wasn't too bad. Get that in there. Again, I believe it is our number 5 on this. Nope, 4. Excuse me. And just tighten them up again. You guys are going to hear it. You're not mounting what? A transmission. Okay, so just, again, nice and snug. You know, you don't have to, you know, over stress them simply because they're holding the throttle. And get that last one tightened up. And we're good to go. Let's get it over to the desk so you guys can see the final product. All right, and we have the final build of the MongoosT-50 CM3 Throttle with the version 4 Desk Mount. This thing is absolutely fantastic, guys. I really, really enjoyed the entire build process. It was a bit long and tedious, but that's because I was trying to record it. I don't think that anybody who was just doing this for fun or because you purchased it would ever go through as detailed as I had to go through to get things out to you guys in an effective way. Other cool part for the throttle, for those clear buttons, you do have some overlays that you can set on top if you'd like as well. The clear cap comes off and you just set those underneath. Okay, so now that we have the VPC software downloaded, we need to extract it. So I'm just going to use 7-zip, extract to the same downloads directory, open it up, and run the executable. Make sure this comes up top. There we go. I'm going to leave it in its default directory. I don't have any problem with, anytime I'm dealing with third-party softwares that have to deal with drivers and things like that, I like to keep them close to home, meaning close to home is on the C drive. So I'm going to go next. And Pro mode, we're going to leave unticked for now. They do recommend also that we have VPC devices USB filter on. So we're going to go ahead and click that. And I'm going to go ahead and create an icon for the VPC shift tool. Now, we're just going to be using the tester and the basic setup today. But, you know, if it's available, why not? We might play around with it later on throughout the review process over the next few videos. Go next, install, and launch the software. Okay, I'm going to bring this up top. Now give me a second. Let me do that. There we go. Okay, so first thing we can see here is it's found the base. Okay. Again, the grip itself is currently not plugged in. Right now, the only thing is the CM3 base. So I'm going to highlight that. It's going through the calibration. Now I'm going to go down to the firmware here and start the auto firmware update. Brings up a warning, just letting us know that any previously saved profiles will be removed. So make sure you back those up if you do have some. We're going to hit OK. Let it run through the process. Takes a little bit less than a minute. So I'm going to go ahead and just let it hold. You will see the device connect and disconnect a few times. Okay. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and plug the grip in. Again, paying attention to the arrows. And you can see here, you want to make sure you select the correct grip. The T-50 CM2 is what I'm doing. Do not mistake that with some of these other ones here. So make sure you pick the right one if you're doing the exact same hardware that I'm using. Okay. Then we're going to come down and we want it on the right for the flight stick. Some software, and when I say software, I'm talking about simulators, games, etc. Some of the older games especially can't use any buttons past 32. 32 is the max amount of buttons that it can detect from a single device. So if you hit split, what it will do is break it up into essentially two different devices. So for example, okay, so now that is done, I'm going to go ahead and close the software. I'm going to unplug my base, the CM3, and now I'm going to plug in the throttle. Now, I want to give you guys a tip to the throttle. The throttle has two 5-prongs on it. Now, there's supposed to be a 4-prong, which is for USB, and a 5-prong for auxiliary. I notice on my CM3 throttle that it is 5 prongs on both. So be very, very careful. You do not want to accidentally plug it in to the auxiliary. You still need to use the USB port. If you're plugging it in so your computer will see it, think USB. That's all you have to do. I'm going to my computer. I want my computer to see my throttle, USB. Okay. So even though they are both 5-prong on the throttle, you want USB. All right, my throttle is now connected. I'm going to relaunch our software here. I think I grabbed the wrong one there. Nope, I did. Okay. There's the throttle. I'm going to let it load. And we're going to do the same thing first. I'm going to go to the firmware, start the auto firmware update. Tells us the same thing we saw on the grip, or the base, I should say. And once again, we'll let this part continue. And we're good. Now for the throttle, we don't have to select anything else here. You can see we've got our Mongoose with the 5-way mode modifier. That's the one with the 5-way rotary right here. We've got the T50 CM3 throttle selected over here. I'm not going to worry about any of this. We don't have to worry about the twist grip. Doesn't have it. So we're just going to hit create profile. And once that's complete, we're going to do our axis calibration again. And let's start going through the different axes. So we're going to go calibrate. We got the mouse. Make sure if you're using the finger lifts on your throttles that you lift them up so that you get the full range of motion. And oh, there it is. The flap control. All right, so once we have all of our axis assigned and calibrated, we can hit save calibration to profile. And now that's complete. I'm going to go ahead and close the software one more time. So let's go ahead and close this out. And now I'm going to go into DCS World, bind just a few controls, and get an idea of what the flight experience is like with this particular aircraft. And no, I do not believe we have to have the software running in order to use the aircraft. So let's get into DCS. Okay, so we are now back in DCS World. And now we're going to do a review of the throttle. Same way that we did the previous video. I'm going to keep track IR and all that good stuff off. Just so that way, keep things nice and smooth. So we're just going to gently add some power. And the throttle response is absolutely amazing. I mean, you have very, very finite control. So here, that's mil power. I've already configured that in the settings. I didn't really have to tweak anything. All I actually did to get to mil power to work the way I wanted to was I just moved the detent a bit forward in the channels that it has available that we were talking about during the assembly. get myself up. Landing gear coming up. Let's get the flaps back to auto. So the mill power works absolutely fantastic. I mean, we should be... There you go. You can see the afterburners are not on. And if I do that, look at the engines. Both of them are at 100%. I didn't do any configuration DCS World, guys. All I did was, remember this channel right here that allows you to slightly move the detent forward and aft. I simply moved on the front throttle. I moved it to its far forward position, and the detent was right where it needed to be. Now, that's probably going to change based on the aircraft you're flying. That's probably not going to be a one and done for all aircraft. Oh, great, I just get to do that. But even if not, it's going to probably be damn close, because you're going to be able to move that detent forward and aft based on where you want it. And then you might have to do a couple of very light tweaks, but it is absolutely, the feeling of this is great. And then for the detents, reaching forward, going into afterburner, just gripping it and ripping it now. You can see our speed increasing. There's our afterburners on. And then watch as I drop the throttle out, afterburners off. And we're at mill power. We're as far forward as I can get. And you can see the engines, they look like they're about 98%, 99%. So it shifted a little bit. But I've actually noticed that's really common in DCS. I don't think that's necessarily a fault of the throttle. But again, if it requires some minor tweaking, you know, that's nothing compared to what it takes to get, for example, the other throttles that I've used in the past to get the afterburners to work with the detent. It feels so freaking good, guys. This is so nice. Let's go ahead and go into air-to-air mode, and I want to play around with a few things. I'm going to make my attack radar my sensor of interest. Oops, wrong button. There we go. And now I'm going to try using the elevation. Look at the elevation caret on the left of the radar. You can see me moving that up and down. And it's going back up and down because of the scan, the way the radar works. So that's normal. But to bring it down, if I want to scan down, if I want to scan higher, this is phenomenal. Absolutely phenomenal. Now, one thing I actually did forget to configure, so let's go ahead and do that, is the mouse for the TDC. So let's go ahead and do that. I'm going to show you guys how I do that. I'm going to go to Axis Assign. I'm going to find the axis on the throttle. Where are you? Well, it should be an axis. Interesting. Oh, wait, no. That's the stick. Oh, it's not. I'm sitting here looking for an axis to move. I haven't bound it yet. That's why we're here. Wow, what's wrong with me? Okay, so for the horizontal axis, I'm going to move the mouse to the left and right. Hey, look, it's moving now. And then the axis vertical, up and down. There we go. Don't ask, guys. Then I'm going to go to axis tune. And I normally set a dead zone of about 5, and I may have to adjust this. I'll set a curvature of normally about 25 to 30. This is just to start, and this is on the... Uh-oh, I forgot which one this was. So I'm going to hit OK. Oh, this is Y, so I'm going to invert it if it's like the rest of them. And then we're going to do the same thing on the horizontal. Dead zone of 5. Curvature, let's go 30. Do not invert the curve if I'm right. And let's see what we get. Yeah, perfect. And look at that sensitivity. I can very gently move it around. It works very, very smooth. Now, one of the things that always happens to me is when you go to depress is when it moves. Had no problem. The TDC isn't moving at all. Even on my previous configuration, try not to mention names, but you guys know what it is. I had done a modification to increase the size. Instead of using that little itty bitty finger mouse, I put one of these on it. Which let me pull that back so you guys can see it. This guy right here. Every time I'd go to push it, the TDC would move a little bit. And this time it is staying, it's just in that right spot. Now that time I moved it a little bit, but again, that's going to require, you know, paying attention to obviously what you're doing with your fingers. That does come into play here. But this thing is fantastic. Absolutely amazing. I am thoroughly impressed with this. The actuation of everything on this throttle feels so smooth. It's like glass. I mean, just the tension is just perfect. I loved the way that the tension worked on it. I loved being able to just get in there with a wrench, get it to where I want, get both axes the way I wanted. Splitting the axis is just as easy, but now the tension is super loose, on either one. So being able to set them both to work in combination made a huge difference as far as that tension goes. It feels much more realistic, much more smooth and even. Now, I will say, as I've stated before, a thing that I do not like about the throttle, I don't like these little red switches. They feel kind of, plasticky and I don't know, toyish, I guess. But I'm not crazy about them. Now, the actuation is great. There's nothing wrong with the way they actuate at all. They feel nice and smooth, like good buttons. The momentary toggles, that's what I wish these were here. I wish the toggles were on the red ones, and maybe the red ones were the momentaries. You got 2 rotaries, again, here. Push buttons. I haven't decided what I'm going to do with these yet, honestly. I already have the Wing Combat panel, so I have my radio comms already set for that. So I haven't decided what I'm going to do. And then having 5 modes to pick from, and I like that it's color coordinated. And then the same thing with this I'm using for my zoom, which I actually really like, because it gives you that finite control. Now I'm going to have to invert that axis because it's going the opposite direction of where I want it to. But it just stays. One of the things that I noticed, I had done the same thing with the slider on the Warthog. And, I said it. And when I would try to do that on mine, I would notice the Warthog would sometimes ghost. It would sometimes do this kind of thing, really light, not quite that extreme. I can't make it do it. I can't move my fingers that small a distance. But all of the hats and features of this thing are amazing. I have so many things bound to this. I have my cage uncage over here. I know you guys can't see it, but it's on this side. I have my speed brakes mapped. I have my auto throttle mapped over here. This is my exterior lights. You can push it. So you still get that feature there. You actually have a roll switch here. Now, this is actually a button. It's not an axis. So you can set this to do something that a button would do. So for example, if you wanted it to be your master lights, right? You remember how we have the NVG mode, regular mode, and then off, the master switch off. You could set that, or you could set it like your position lights. Maybe that's what I'll do with these guys. I set these all as lights. I don't know yet. But you have a ton of configuration options. I have been sitting here the entire time. I mapped this earlier this afternoon, and ever since then, I'm just thinking of different ways that I can do it. I'm already thinking about what I'm going to do with like the Huey or the F-14. The F-14 is going to be a fun one because of all the manual controls that are involved with the F-14. So much of it isn't automated. And you have so many different variables that you can map with it. The A-10 is going to be ridiculous. I think if they had something like this in the A-10, it would have been more effective than it already is, and we already know that thing's a badass. So let's just call that what it is. So now we're going to go ahead, and I'm just going to bring the aircraft in for a landing using the throttle, and we're going to see what that's like. So let's go ahead and get ourselves back to base. Now, I've been flying around so much, I think that's it right out in front of me, so we're going to go up and look. But flying this thing is incredible. This thing feels, there's just, even on the throttles, there's no detent, there's no stopping, there's no bumps, there's no drag, there's, aside from the tension that that we set on purpose. Let's come out of air-to-air mode. And we can turn, I think master arm's already safe, good. But it's just, everything on these products are so smooth. I'm blown away by that part. And again, I thought I was doing pretty well with the Thrustmaster Warthog, and I'm still not going to take away from that. Again, 6 years of being very dedicated to the Thrustmaster Warthog. It was my joystick of choice. I never thought I would see the day where I would blatantly admit that I don't know that I'll ever go back to it after this. It's still a fantastic piece of equipment, but this thing is amazing. And I don't mean to keep bringing up competition here. That's not what this video is about. It's just, what I have to compare it to. And going from what I figured was a pretty high tier piece of equipment, this is incredible. This is absolutely incredible. I don't know how to describe the feeling. It's very comfortable in my hand, reaching everything. I'm sitting here trying to think about what I want to do with this guy right here. There's just something about this. I have to find something for it because it feels cool. Maybe I'll change that to the radar elevation, because it's got a nice center detent. It's got a nice click there in the center. And so, that'd be a nice elevation up, elevation down, maybe something like that. I haven't decided yet. There's, plenty of features in the F-18 that I've never used before that maybe we could take advantage of there. I think that is our runway It's going to be weird because I don't have the camera set up. But let's kick those speed brakes out. And I have it set where I have to hold the button down to get maximum speed brake deployed. We should have them out. Yep, they're out. Power set to idle here, so we should be dropping speed pretty quick. I'm going to go ahead and set the flaps down to half. I'm not doing the correct approach, again, because I don't have my cameras enabled. So seeing everything is going to be a little difficult. I'm going to bring the speed brakes back in. Start trimming for airspeed. Still letting that speed fall off. Here it comes. I'm extending out quite a ways because I don't know how far off course line I am. Trimming up. The tension response is so nice. Making these minor corrections, I'm not used to it. I keep pushing way more than what I need to now. Let's start turning because I'm descending quite a bit. So I'm going to add some power. Power, power, power. Don't want to descend anymore. And holding this turn with the bank angle that I want is just cake. Power setting looking perfect for what I'm doing right now. I'm going way wide. So I'm going to add quite a bit of power here. I went way wide. It's really weird when you're used to flying with like track IR or VR or something like that and then losing it. It's really goofy. All right, so again, going flaps full. There's our engine power back. Got too low again. Don't mind the bad flying. It has nothing to do with the equipment. This is all on the pilot. The pilot is doing a horrible job. The plane and the equipment is doing wonderfully. Let's turn the radar off here. Oh, wrong one. There we go. See if I can get a semi-decent approach because right now I'm looking like crap. There we go. Managed to get something decent in. Let's pull some power off. It's so smooth. A little fast. And we're down. Deploying that speed brake. Ooh, mama, come on. Come on. Ooh-wee. All right, speed brake in. And there you have it, guys. So, initial first flight impressions of the T-50 CM3 throttle is it's absolutely freaking outstanding. I'm blown away by it. It's the same story as it was with the Grip. This thing is so smooth. I should probably pause the sim. It is so smooth. It is so comfortable. It's so ergonomic. All the buttons are so easy to reach and manipulate. The different configuration options are endless. I haven't mapped anything down here yet. Absolutely nothing. Everything that I need is already mapped up on the HOTAS, and I still have, I think, 2 or 3 hats available, and I think 3 buttons that I can still map on the throttle itself before I even get down to the base. It's an amazing experience. I am blown away by it. Same complaints with the mount that I had before with the grip. Not crazy about the way that works, but again, as I had to move the grip mount today, or the grip base, it really wasn't that big of a deal. It took me 3 seconds to do it. The finger lifts are fun. I cannot get enough of playing with these. I do this all day at work when I'm on my calls working and stuff. I'm constantly playing with it, going from here, coming back up over the gate. I'm still going to configure that to where when we get to here, we go into some sort of cutoff. I haven't figured out how to do that yet, but that'll be my next mission for these aircraft. But it feels really nice. I love the size of it. The pinky button here is actually really convenient to get to, and your hand just sort of rests on it. And you have to push. Like you don't have to worry about depressing the button by just resting your finger on it. You have to give it a good push for it to actually do anything. So once again, guys, hats off to Virpil. I'm blown away by the quality of this product. I'm absolutely amazed by it. Yes, it has a pretty high price point. I'm not going to hide that fact from anybody, but I am someone who has spent much of my life fighting pretty hard for the things that I have in it. And I tell you that this would absolutely be something worth spending the hard-earned money on. From my personal opinion, I am blown away by this. I don't even know what to say. This has been such an amazing experience for me. It's the first time that I've been a part of a large company like this and had this opportunity from a large company like this. I'm just very, very grateful that this opportunity was given to me. This is such an awesome product. There is so much you can do with it. There's so many customization options. I just can't state that enough. These were all very, very well thought out products. It's just, I can't wait to see what happens over the next couple weeks as I really drill down and use the living you-know-what out of them. Anyway, let me know what you guys think, as always, down in the comments below. Be sure to hit that like and subscribe button so you can get the notification of future content in regards to the Virpil Controls and other content that I put out on the channel. Above all else, guys, you know the drill. Stay safe and healthy, and I will see you in the next one.